We'll start in 1 minute. Please stand for the posting of elders.
Uniform personnel, attention! Color guards, carry colors. By the right. Uniform personnel, freeze! Uniform personnel, order, halt!
You may be seated. On behalf of the Christensen family, CAL FIRE, the Riverside Unit, CAL FIRE Local 2881, and the CAL FIRE Honor Guard Pipes and Drums, thanks for your attendance here today. We gather here today in memory of Chris Christensen to reflect on his life and to celebrate the spirit he shared with us. We come together in grief, acknowledging our human loss and seeking comfort in community. Chris leaves behind a legacy in the following. Chris was preceded in death by his father, Larry Christensen, who passed away on July 6, 2024, and his father-in-law, Bill Dahlquist, who passed away on July 14, 2024. His wife, Linda Dahlquist Christensen. Son, Hans Christensen. Daughter, Kira Christensen. His mother, Shirley Bowman Christensen. His sisters, Lisa, Michelle, Carrie, and Rick. His brothers, Chad, Zach. Mother-in-law, Q. Dahlquist, brother-in-law John Dahlquist, nieces and nephew Eric, Berkeley and Dylan, Cross, Court, Sophia, Lucas, Francesca, Ella, Holden, and baby boy Stancer, due on November 24th, 2024. I'll share a reading with you. All things are impermanent. They arise and pass away. Being in harmony with this truth brings true happiness. And Carrie, will you come share?
His journey's just begun. Don't think of him as gone away. His journey has just begun. Life holds so many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrow and the tears, in place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched. For nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much.
Let us begin with a moment of silence to center our thoughts and bring our presence fully into this space, honoring the life and legacy of Chris Christensen.
everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm not sure if this is necessary, but my name is Kira, and Chris was my dad. First and foremost, on behalf of my mom, Linda, my brother, Hans, and myself, we want to thank you all for coming to my dad's celebration of life. It warms my heart seeing all of the wonderful faces that had the opportunity to be in the presence of my dad. With that being said, I want to start by saying that I once had a conversation with my dad about how he sometimes disliked funerals. He told me that he found it unrealistic that nobody ever said anything bad. So although it's unorthodox, I feel like it's only natural I tell you about his more negative traits. An important one being that my dad was the most sore loser I have ever met. So much so that he wouldn't play Clue with me anymore because he always lost. I remember laughing and objecting so much when he insisted that I had some magic ability so I was cheating at the game. When he did win a game, he would do our winner's dance, where he would stand up, turn around, and aggressively shake his butt while singing, "I win, I win." Along with being over-competitive, he was also slightly inappropriate at times. I'm sure many of you know that if you ever got a chance to sit down and talk with him. But you know what? That was just my dad. Without his over-competitive nature and ill-timed comments, he wouldn't have been himself. So in a way, I guess those are some of the most positive things about him. From running down the stairs to give him the biggest hugs when he got home from work, sorry, to watching game shows like Wheel of Fortune before he went to bed, there was never a time in my life where I didn't think, wow, I have the best dad. He always made sure to let us know that he loved his family, starting with my mom. I remember my dad always telling me that he has no idea where he would have been without my mom. All he ever wanted to do was make her the happiest wife. Let's put it this way. If he had to choose between his most beloved Bronco and my mom, there are no doubts in my mind that he would give up that car for her. Now, if you ask me how much my dad loved my brother and I, he would tell you a story. He would tell you that when we were babies, every time he would pick us up, he would give us little kisses and hugs. And then one day, when he was out shopping or doing whatever, a woman came up to him and said, "I noticed that every time you pick your kids up, you give them kisses." And my dad naturally would reply, "Well, yes, of course. They're my babies." And she would reply back, "Yes, I know. You just don't see many dads showing the love that you show your kids." He jumped on every opportunity to tell this story because he needed to make sure that my brother and I knew we were his greatest accomplishment in life. He did that and even more for our family. I will miss my dad so much. He was hands down the best dad I could have ever asked for. I am happy knowing that I will always be his honey bear. And I find comfort in knowing that even though we can't see him anymore, he is out there hanging with Papa and playing with his most favorite dogs, Kiki and Medic. Thank you all for being here today for Chris's celebration of life.
That was beautiful, Kira. I'm Michelle. I'm one of Chris's sisters, big sisters. My brother Chris. My brother Chris was one of the most selfless people that I know. He was always willing to help others, no matter what their request. And he made everyone around him feel loved and really special. He was one of my best friends. Chris was a person who we could bare our hearts to because he loved without limits. He understood the value of reflection and in living in the moment. He was a good listener and always helped to find the humor in things. You're seeing a theme here. I loved his dry and quirky sense of humor. He lived his life with integrity and passion and compassion. From the time he was little, all he ever wanted to be is a fireman. We used to watch Emergency 51, and John Gage and Roy DeSoto were familiar names in our household. Further, Chris's lunch pails were always fireman related, and on several Halloweens, yeah, you guessed it, he was a fireman. Chris always had a zest for life. We share many memories of laughing so hard that we cried. As a kid, he loved to go off-roading on his motorcycle. He loved roller coasters, driving around in his first car, his classic topless Bronco, another Bronco, and playing his music really loud. His Violent Femmes favorite, U2 and Smiths, always drowned out my Cher and Kenny Rogers. I don't get it. He was much more hip with his music selections than I was. The first time he met Linda, he came home and he announced that he had found the girl he was going to marry literally the first time he met you. He was so assured about his love for you from the very beginning. One thing I knew about my little brother was if he set his mind to something, he always made it happen. Even after 25 years of marriage, he would say, "I'm not sure how I got so lucky." Chris adored Linda and his two amazing children, Hans and Kira. He was such a great dad, as you heard. He loved bragging about them, and it was really fun to watch his face light up when he did. Most of our conversations always had something to do with our children. He was so incredibly proud of all of them. Chris was the best uncle and grunkle, as we call it, great uncle. He was involved in loving and would help his nieces and nephews with whatever they needed. He was always so good to me and to my children, and I will forever be grateful for this. Chris was a constant in our lives, a rock to lean on, and someone we looked to for guidance. He was the life of the party, and yeah, again, the person we could cry with. Because of his vast experiences as a fireman paramedic, he truly understood the human condition and how special life could truly be. There is a hole so large without him, and we will forever miss him in our everyday lives. I know he will live on in each of us, in the gifts he bestowed upon us, with his loving presence. Like the title of the Smiths song, there is a light that never goes out. Your light and your brilliance will shine on forever, Chris. We love you infinity.
It's incredible to see how many people are here with us, and we are so grateful for all the love, for Chris and Linda and Hans and Kira and our entire family. So thank you for being here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't wanted to write this because that would make today very real. And I don't want to accept that he's not here. For those who don't know me, I'm Lisa. I am Chris's oldest sister. I'll be oldest today, Michelle. I didn't grow up with Chris or my siblings. I met them 24 years ago, and I remember the first time that I met them, Chris sat in this overstuffed chair with his arms folded and his, what I'll call RBF face, and Linda sitting on the arm of the chair next to him just smiling. She was a complete contrast to the look on Chris's face, and I thought maybe he didn't like me, but it turns out it was really just him. It was just his face. A few weeks later, he called me and he asked me to have dinner, and I was so excited. We hung out, we talked about growing up, we talked about music, his beautiful wife, Linda, and how they met, both of us wanting to have children someday. And he would call me almost every Saturday morning after that when he was driving home from either Mecca or Desert Center. And it was a great opportunity to get to know him. I loved every minute and every phone call. We both had a love for music. We had similar musical tastes and would regularly try to beat each other with song titles and band names. And if you know Chris, you knew his love of game shows, particularly Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. So don't bother him from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. weekdays. So playing music trivia could get pretty competitive. We went to a few concerts together, U2, no doubt, multiple times to see the Violent Femmes. He loved musicals too. It's probably something a lot of people didn't know about him. Grease, Rent, Tick, Tick, Boom, Little Mermaid. He asked me recently when I was going to watch Little Mermaid with my daughter Ella, because he wanted to watch it with her, but he didn't want to do it before I did. The Saturday night before he got sick, we sat in my backyard and watched part of it because Ella was just running around. She wasn't even watching it. But when he started singing the songs, the rest of us groaned with a group, "Oh, geez, no." He stopped midway chorus and said, "What?" Maybe a little annoyed that we weren't keen on him belting out "Kiss the Girl." He loved my daughter, his niece. They had such a bond. When I brought Ella home from the hospital, we realized that she had messed her diaper, and he quickly volunteered to change her, and I wasn't going to argue with him. On his days off, the twins would be in school, Linda would be working, and from the time she was about 3 months old, he would text me and say, "Does Ella want to go to the pool with me?" And she couldn't answer, but I would always say, "Let me ask her." Her answer was always a resounding yes. So within minutes, he would be at my front door, ready to take her to our community pool. And he would sit in the little baby pool with her, just enjoying their quiet time together. He would buy her little dresses with matching bloomers, and he'd find toys on our Rosina Ranch Facebook page, and they would magically show up on our doorstep. I remember one day he texted me complaining that I never put her in the dress he bought her. Confused, I looked at her and the pictures of him holding her at the fire station earlier that day in the dress he bought her. He forgot what it looked like. Whenever my daughter would pick up a new habit or unsavory word or phrase, I would ask her, "Where did you learn that?" And she would laugh and say, "Uncle." Most of the time that was the truth, but sometimes she would say it was him and it wasn't. He would fake his dismay of always being blamed, but we knew that most of the time it was him. About a week after our dad passed, Chris and I were talking about a lot of things. And if you know him, you know he doesn't always talk, so I was grateful for this opportunity. Linda, Hans, and Kira were tired and probably wanted me to leave, but this was an opportunity, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't leave. We talked about life. We talked about stories of the fires he'd been on, the important role that our dad played in my daughter's life. Chris told me that he needed to step up to fill the void that our dad was leaving in Ella's life. But what he didn't realize was he already played a very special role in her life. It wasn't long enough, not nearly long enough. For the short time that he was in her life, he left an imprint so deep in her, she will always be better for it. He was her Uncle Stinky Pete. He was Cookie Monster, with the two of them singing, "C is for cookie, it's good enough for me." Yeah. And I would get that song caught in my head, and I would just be like, "Oh God, please stop singing that song." And at 3.5, she doesn't quite understand all of this. So much loss in her little life. She asked me the other day where Uncle was. I struggled, but I said, "He's in heaven." And she paused and then said, "Is Uncle still a fireman in heaven?" And I said, "I don't know, but he was a hero here on earth. I'd like to think that he is still a fireman in heaven." He loved his family fiercely. Linda, Hans, Kira, you were his absolute world. There wasn't anything he wouldn't do for you, and I know that he fought to stay with us. And Ella and I love you all so much.
All right, so I want to start off by saying thank you all for coming. If you guys don't know me, I'm Court. I'm his nephew. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? All right, I just want to say thank you for all coming. If you don't know me, my name's Court. I'm his nephew. I wanted to start off by telling you a story about him being a great teacher. He let us figure things out for ourselves. I remember working on Hans's first car with him and Hans. We were installing a whole new suspension and steering column on it. I remember not knowing where to start, and Hans asking him, "What should we do first?" I remember, his response was, "I don't know." Eventually, after lots of, "No, that doesn't look right," and many, many YouTube videos, we finished installing everything. I don't think anything felt better than looking at our work and knowing that we did it. We figured it out. Oreo looked beautiful. Hans's Jeep's name. If you want to know more about that, you'll have to ask Hans. That suspension wasn't the last thing they upgraded on that car. I got to spend a lot of time with Chris, especially after I graduated from high school. Didn't know what I was going to do with my life. We spent many nights around a fire talking about the past, present, and future, especially his kids, his wife. We talked about family, talked about life. We talked about his Bronco. Sapphire, that was her name. You know how much he loved that car. He listened, he gave guidance. He told me that things would be okay, even when they seemed like they wouldn't. Sitting around that fire talking with my uncle was healing. Sorry. The fire was healing. Chris was healing. He carried with him a flame, an energy, unmatched, one of a kind. He could always brighten a room. He could also kick your ass at Wheel of Fortune and out-rock you at any concert. In fact, he took me to my first concert. Of course, the Violent Femmes and Floggy Molly. It was unforgettable. He was unforgettable. He can never be replaced. He will forever be with us, warming our hearts and sending us love. The last thing I wanted to say was to Hans and Kira. Kira first. You go, girl! Hans, you go, boy! Your dad loves you. Linda, he loved you so much, still does. Thank you.
So now that he put it all the way up, I'm gonna put it down. I decided instead of a long speech about everything amazing and not so amazing about my brother. I am the baby of the family. I'm the youngest of the kids. I was going to read you There was a lot of traditions that we had in our family. One in particular was Christmas Eve. My dad would always, our dad would always read us stories before it was bedtime. It was a good way to end the night and send everyone to bed. It was that final point. Some of us had stories. Chris, his story was just for Christmas. It is, like him, a little inappropriate. Father calls me William, sister calls me Will, mother calls me Willie, but the fellers call me Bill. Mighty glad I ain't a girl, rather be a boy, without them sashes, curls, and things that's worn by Fauntleroy. Love to chop green apples and go swimming in the lake. Hate to take the castor oil they give for bellyache. Most all the time, the whole year round, there ain't no flies on me. But just for Christmas, I'm as good as I can be. Got a yeller dog named Spot, sick 'em on a cat. First thing she knows, she doesn't know where she's at. Got a slippery sled, and when the kids go out to slide, long comes a grocery cart, and we all hook a ride. But sometimes when the grocery man is worried and cross, he reaches at us with his whip and larrups up his hoss. And then I laugh and holler, oh, you ain't never touched me, but just for Christmas, I'm as good as I can be. And then that old sport, he hangs around so solemn-like and still. His eyes, they kept a-saying, what's the matter, little Bill? The old cat sneaks down off her porch and wonders what's become of them two enemies of hern that used to make them things him. But I am polite and tend to so earnestly to biz that mother says to father, how improved our Willie is. But father, having been a boy himself, suspicions me when just for Christmas, I'm as good as I can be. For Christmas, with its lots and lots of candles, cakes, and toys, was made, they say, for proper kids, not for naughty boys. So wash your hands and brush your hair, and mind your P's and Q's. And don't bust out your pantaloons, and don't wear out your shoes. Say yes'm to the ladies and yes'ers to the men, and when they're company, don't pass your plate for pie again. But thinking of the things you'd like to see under the tree, just for Christmas, be as good as you can be. And I am no match to the way our dad read this every year from our entire lives. So one more time for you, big brother. We love you and we miss you. Thank you.
I really have to move the mic up. Good morning. I'm Bill Weiser. I'm the fire chief for CAL FIRE and the Riverside County Fire Department. Chris Christensen had an amazing career as a firefighter, engineer, fire captain with CAL FIRE. Chris worked hard as a young man to become a paramedic. A paramedic in the fire service is a very important job. The life-saving procedures they perform under the most stressful situations, sometimes in the toughest physical spots imaginable, is nothing less than what superheroes do. Chris was hired by CAL FIRE in February 26th of 2001. He was assigned to Lake Tamara's, Station 49. The station is also called Desert Center. It's the halfway point between Indio and Blythe, right along the I-10 corridor. This station is an outpost. It stands alone. There is not a backup, engine, or ambulance. Often patients are airlifted from emergencies. Chris started there when Riverside County Fire began our paramedic program. During his 4 years at Station 49, Chris saved dozens of people and did it without other fire engines and 20 other firefighters helping. It was just the crew of Engine 49, and Chris was the paramedic. He was a superhero to so many people that were injured along that I-15 corridor in horrific traffic collisions. In March 25th, 2005, Chris transferred to Station 66, Beaumont City. He worked as the firefighter medic on the engine there for about 1 year. On February 20th of 2006, firefighter paramedic Christensen promoted to fire apparatus engineer paramedic. This is a big jump in the fire service. Engineers are company officers in CAL FIRE and must lead the crews. Engineers make those tough decisions and lead by example. Chris promoted to Station 22, Cherry Valley. This station is just north of Beaumont. By all accounts, Chris found a home at Station 22. Over the last few weeks, I have heard and spoke to many firefighters throughout that region. I have learned that Chris was a mentor to them. Not only did he lead his troops, but he set the example for others to follow. He made an impact on the next generation of firefighters. If you didn't know, that's what superheroes do. On May 25th, 2015, Chris was promoted to limited term fire captain in San Bernardino. Chris only worked in San Bernardino for about 7 months. On January 4th of 2018, Chris came back to Riverside County to Cherry Valley as an engineer. And over the next few months, Chris would promote to limited term fire captain and then back to engineer. He worked back at Cherry Valley for about 2 months before he was promoted back to fire captain LT and went to work as a relief fire captain in Schedule B. He worked between San Jacinto Station 25 and Sage Station 28. He did that for over a year, and then he went back to Cherry Valley for the last time back in May of 2017. Linda, this must have been a crazy time. schedule changes, different assignments, and just plain craziness. Chris was driving all over this county. Finally, some of that craziness went away when on June 17th of 2017, Chris accepted a permanent fire captain job in Riverside. He was assigned to Battalion 6, first as a vacation relief, then on May 21st of 2018, he transferred to Station 40, Mecca. While Chris was assigned to Mecca in relief, he worked in one of the toughest of areas in Riverside. It's ridiculous hot in the summer. It has monsoonal downpours, crazy wind-driven fires, and again, terrible traffic collisions. I think Chris secretly loved these places. In his performance evaluations during this time, he received high marks, well-motivated and enthusiastic, and a teaching role for other firefighters. If you don't know, only superheroes volunteer to go to the toughest places. In June 17th of 2019, Fire Captain Christensen transferred to Home Garden Station 13. Chris went back to his roots. He transferred to a fire captain paramedic position. Chris liked being a paramedic. He liked making a difference. I think he wanted to be a leader that teaches the next generation of paramedics. He wanted to keep up that time-honored tradition of instilling his values of putting service before self, being a professional, and being prepared. Linda, Hans, Kira, and the rest of the family, I know that Chris was a husband, a dad, a son, a brother, an uncle, and probably more to all of you. At home, he wore regular clothes, he was funny, he loved music, he cared and loved all of you. But the truth is, you might have missed his cape, his mask, that so many of the people saw, because Fire Captain Paramedic was a superhero to the people he touched. In the fire service, Chris Christensen made a difference. Thank you.
I gotta lower it down a little bit. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cross. I was Chris's nephew. Christopher Michael Christensen was born April 25th, 1972, to parents Larry Homer Christensen and Shirley Ann Christensen, and died August 31st, 2024. The most important thing to Chris was his family. He strived to be the best husband and father to Linda, Hans, and Kira. Chris also took pride in being available to help anyone in need. He was always the first to show up and fix something, even if it took all day. For Chris, humor was a constant. He made it his mission to keep people amused and laughing. He had a wicked sense of humor. One of Chris's mottos was, "Better out than in, I say," along with a couple others that could not be repeated here today. One of his favorite places was the beach. Growing up, this was a place his parents often took the family, and he continued that tradition with his own family. Anywhere with water was calming and peaceful for Chris. He also loved to collect firefighter memorabilia, watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and playing board games. He was so good at all these things. In fact, we couldn't watch Wheel of Fortune with him because he always solved the puzzle after a few letters were displayed. Chris was also fond of tattoos. He had a family of elephants for Linda, a rat for Hans, because this was his favorite stuffed animal as a child, a daisy and honey bear for Kira, since honey bear was her endearing nickname for her. He also had his family crest, several firefighter-themed tattoos, of course, and some for his love of everything Irish. Classic Chris also included his Bronco, of course, which he named Sapphire, 70s and 80s soft rock, Celtic music, Creepers, Cookie Monster, and sitting by the fire pit watching the fire. Another joy for Chris, in addition to being a fireman, was teaching CPR and first aid. His students loved him because he helped make difficult content seem easy with his practical application of the material. As a young child, Chris moved a lot, and he even lived in Oregon for a short while, but finally settled in Upland, California, where he attended Citrus Elementary, Upland Junior High, and Chaffee High School. He then went on to Crafton Hills to finish paramedic school and his associates in fire technology. Chris also loved to work. He started when he was 8 years old with a paper route with his sister Michelle, and when he was old enough, he worked at Bullwinkle's and Blockbuster Video. Love that place. After college, he continued working for AMR, FlexEd, Apple Valley Fire, and CAL FIRE, where he finished out his career as a paramedic fire captain. Chris was a hard worker and believed in getting the job done and doing it right the first time. When asked about his awards, he would say his kids were his biggest accomplishment. Chris was extremely proud of his twins, Hans and Kira. Chris's short 52 years were full of joy, passion, love of learning, helping others, and an unconditional love for his family. He left an unforgettable mark on this world and us all. Chris will be sorely missed.
The road ahead will be lined with difficult times and joyous ones. Everyone here must be strong and at the same time allow others to come alongside of you, to comfort you, to care for you. In the days ahead, you'll have opportunities to share with family and friends how Chris impacted your life. And just the stories today have been incredible. The lessons you've learned and the love and friendship you have shared with an incredible person. May I remind you that you have a cherished gift with you now, your memories, and there's also a golden opportunity to encourage and comfort one another. Each person in this room is grieving the loss of a loved one, a friend, or a coworker. Could we say that the grief we are experiencing is good? Is there such a thing as good grief? Every person in this room has experienced grief. I must answer that question with a resounding yes. Grief is the mechanism that carries through the valley of the shadow of death. Grief is a cleansing tool that sometimes scrubs and other times gently strokes and brushes away the residue of the past. Grief brings about tears, tears of joy and tears of sorrow, tears that wash away and tears that fill our heart. Grief brings families together. Grief gives friends the opportunity to share, to give of themselves in unselfish ways. Grief heals wounds and acts as your personal physician. Grief carries us down roads that are not traveled in everyday life, roads that make their mark and carry us to unknown places of the heart. Grief can link hearts together with a closer bond than happiness can. Common suffering is a stronger link than common joy. We bring to mind the good things that Chris did and the difficult times he experienced. Our lives are meshed with the good and the bad, the sweet and the bitter, the highs and the lows, the joys and the sorrows, and it's the goodness of grief that allows us to experience all those things. It creates in us an understanding and compassion that is indescribable unless you have gone through it. It creates in us a special place in our hearts that allows us to be able to understand and feel what others are experiencing, and gives us the opportunity to not only relate, but to comfort them with the same comfort we've received. Good grief creates in us that ability to pour ourselves into a life that is hurting as we hurt. Part of the healing process that we can share with one another today. All of this reminds us of the importance of family values. It tells us that we all need to call our family members, our grandmas, grandpas, moms, dads, kids, brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, go see them, say I'm sorry if you need to, spend time with them, go see your friends and make it a priority. Don't put it off. Make the best of your time. Don't let your time slip on by. Each one here today has memories of Chris. He is gone but not forgotten. You know, when you work for the fire service and you see the tragedies of the fires the last couple of weeks, and then we lose a brother, it hurts. But it's incredible to see the support that families in the fire service get. It's incredible to know that everybody out there loved him And I know a lot of them wanted to be here today, but because of schedules, couldn't get off. But you guys are left. Will you join me in prayer? Thank you for the life you gave Chris. Thank you for the impact that he made on his family, his CAL FIRE family, the Riverside unit, and all of his friends. May peace be above us, below us, and around us, but most of all, may it be within us. May we find comfort in our memories and solace in our fellowship. As we close this section of our gathering, let us carry forth Chris's spirit in acts of kindness and courage. And we'll now have the firefighters' prayer.
A firefighter's prayer. When I'm called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me strength to save a life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of the fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the quickest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to feel my calling and to give the best in me to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if according to God's will, I must answer death's call, bless with your protecting hand my family, one and all.
We now have fire department honors.
The bell ceremony. When one of our own passes, we consider it an honor to be present, to celebrate their life, celebrate, for there is no more joyous a life than that of a fireman who puts his heart into his work. To thank you, his family, for sharing him with us. To thank him for carrying on and expanding the tradition of the fire service. To thank him for providing the blanket of safety which we grew up. And so we offer him one final tradition of the fire service, his last alarm as told by the bell. For it was the bell when the fire service was young that signaled the alarm when fire threatened lives and homes. And when the firemen had subdued the threat, it was again the bell that heralded their return to safety. When a fireman died fighting the blaze, it was a mournful toll of the bell with which we laid him to rest. And so, for a lifetime of service, on behalf of a grateful fire community, we toll the bell 3 rings, 3 times each. For our brother, Fire Captain Christopher Christensen, his last alarm, his duty is well done. He is going home. Forward, march.
This concludes the service for Christopher Michael Christensen. The family wishes again to say thank you. And thank you for attendance today. And the doors are going to be open on this side, and there'll be exits out the back door. But again, thank you. And if you get a chance to spend a little time with them, spend a little time with the family. Thank you.